Hey everyone, please support what I do to help keep Greyhawk alive by subscribing to the channel. Also, please consider becoming a channel member to get early access to videos, exclusive live chats, quarterly adventure modules, and more. Thanks, and enjoy the show. So, I was contemplating the death of a friend of mine that happened a few years ago that I only just recently found out about. And it got me thinking about some of the games we used to play, and I wanted to share those memories of Tommy with you all today on Greyhawk Grognard. So I'm going to try not to keep this from getting too maudlin, but my best friend growing up was Tommy, and we went to kindergarten together, and we were inseparable. We always were at each other's houses playing, so on and so forth. We learned wargaming together. One summer when we were both, I think, 9 years old, we learned how to. We taught ourselves to play Tactics 2 from Avalon Hill, and then we branched out from there almost immediately. I remember the first war game I ever bought was with Tommy. My mother had driven us into New York City to the Complete Strategist, and he bought SPI's World War III, and I bought Invasion America, and I still have it on the shelf there. The very first war game I bought. So he and I would play the games together. All the big ones, War in Europe. I mean, he actually dismantled his father's train set in the basement of his house so that we could set up the War in Europe map, which was fun. And then we segued into Dungeons and Dragons, and all throughout middle school and high school, he and I and some other friends would be playing all the time. And then we kind of lost touch. When I went to college, kind of lost touch with each other. Saw him a couple of times here and there, but then on New Year's Eve, I was visiting his mother's grave, and I noticed that his name was on it too. And I looked it up, and he died a few years ago. So, but one of the things that I remember, and really what I wanted to talk about here is. Even before we discovered war games, even just before we discovered D&D, we had our own game setting. And I'll try to explain. Back in the 70s, they had these 7-inch action figures. They were Star Trek figures, there were Planet of the Apes figures, because there was a Star Trek, there was the Star Trek cartoon, so they turned those into action figures. There was a Planet of the Apes TV show in the early 70s that we were both huge fans of. We were both huge fans of Planet of the Apes and Logan's Run, the movie and the TV show. There was a TV show in I think 77 that came out. It was awful. It didn't last very long. But we kind of... there was another show called Arc 2, which was earlier, I guess 73, 74, which was a post-apocalyptic show where they drove around in this big truck, this big futuristic truck, and they solved problems of people who had descended into scientific illiteracy and things like that. It was very ecological catastrophe kind of time, and in movies and TV and stuff. And over time, we evolved this really complicated milieu of. It was a mix of kind of Planet of the Apes mixed in with a post-apocalyptic, almost Gamma World-ish kind of thing. The old Planet of the Apes magazines from Marvel were a huge influence on this, but it really combined like Planet of the Apes and Logan's Run and Arc 2 and the magazines and stuff, and we had this whole thing. And I remember in my house, in the garden, we had this kind of raised garden with these railroad ties, and one of the railroad ties was kind of rotten, and it had like a cave in it, and we would, that would be part of our forbidden zone. I had an old VW Beetle toy car that was about the right size for the action figures, so I kind of smashed it up, and it ended up in the garden as part of our set for these things. And we had a lot of the, we put the Planet of the Apes houses out there, and we swooshed together. We had all the the Star Trek action figures would be different things. We would swap out the clothes and try to make them all fit. I think we had an Action Jackson was about the same size, and we would swap things out. And sometimes we'd actually have it be a Star Trek game where they'd come down as a landing party. And I remember buying multiple versions of Scotty so I could have a whole bunch of security guards, because the uniforms would fit the astronaut figure from the Planet of the Apes line. It got really involved. But we had this whole thing, and it was this mix of post-apocalyptic, ecological disaster thing, and monster movies, and Planet of the Apes, and Star Trek, and all this kind of sci-fi fantasy stuff that I take that back. It was all sci-fi stuff at the time, as much as I could distinguish when I'm like 6 or 8 years old. But what was really striking about it to me anyway was the fact that we managed to make it so consistent from time to time. We didn't really carry on a story from day to day, but it was always in that same kind of era, that same kind of milieu. And we actually set up a place in the garden with the cave that was part of the ruins of the human civilization, and it was just this. It was a really cool mishmash of a bunch of different things. Earth 2 and Planet Earth, the old Gene Roddenberry shows, where the guy is frozen accidentally and wakes up 200 years in the future. That was a big part of it too. It's on streaming, and I've watched it not too long ago, and one of the striking things is Mariette Hartley is one of the mutants, and they have 2 belly buttons, so that always freaked me out when I was a kid. But we would have the thing we would do where Dylan Hunt was frozen and wakes up and stuff, and then of course there was Thundar the Barbarian. That was a little later on. If Thundar the Barbarian had come out 10 years sooner, it would have been like manna for us for this kind of play, but it was a little later. And but some of the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, the Herculoids and things like that, those were also an influence on this. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because I've been thinking about Tommy, and I've been thinking about those games that we would play in the garden with the action figures, and I realized that it was almost a proto RPG setting that we were doing in the garden, because it had with all these influences from various sci-fi things of the day, with post-apocalyptic being the prevalent one, but it was influenced by a whole bunch of other stuff. So anyway, I apologize for rambling. I just wanted to get that out there, and hope everybody is doing well. Hope you enjoyed my trip down memory lane, and let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you guys did stuff like that too, where it was kind of consistent. That's really no matter what the influence might have been, it's the consistency of this is always the thing that we play, and this lasted for years. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and I will talk to you later. And Tommy, I miss you. Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.